how to edit like PZ part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I'll have a link to that down in the description. For this one, I'll be breaking down 3 more effects and transitions from the same music video called Extra Extra. There was just so many different effects and transitions to break down that I need to split this into 2 different videos. So without wasting any more time, let's get right into the video. So for this first one, it's actually going to be 3 effects in one. We're going to be covering a kaleidoscope, offset, as well as this distort stretch effect. And in order to create it, you are going to need to rotoscope your layer. I already rotoscoped my layer right here, and then right underneath we have our background layer. First thing we're going to do is duplicate this rotoscope layer. We're going to be using this duplicated layer in order to change the scale as well as the position, because I want this one to start a little more towards the left and it's going to be a little bigger. Then it's going to cut into the regular layer. Open up the scale as well as the position. Increase the scale to make it a little bigger. I'll just increase that to 120%. Then I'll move this a little more towards the left, just like that. And we're only gonna make this layer 4 frames long because, like I mentioned, I want this rotoscope layer to eventually just cut to this normal rotoscope layer right here. Drag this right underneath the original rotoscope layer. I also don't want this layer to start off at the same time as that duplicated rotoscope layer. So I'll go forward 2 frames, cut this rotoscope layer, the original one, forward 2 frames. That way we only have the duplicated one in the beginning. Now that we created that, we're gonna be creating a kaleidoscope effect using these 2 clips right here. So I'm going to grab these 2 layers and just drag it right underneath the rotoscope layers. For this first one right here, cut this clip so that's only 4 frames long, and we're going to be adding the CC Kaleido effect to this first clip. There's a few things we're going to do. Increase the size so that's a lot bigger, just like that. Change the rotation in order to get a better look. And for the mirroring settings, I'll just leave it at flower because I like the way this one looks. It's also similar to the one they did in the actual music video. Then you want to click this option right here, floating center, and move this a little more towards the left because I want it to be behind our subject right here. Then we're going to add an optics compensation. For this effect, make sure to select this option right here, reverse lens distortion, and I want it to be really stretched out. So I'll just go ahead and increase this to 125. Now we have this really nice distorted kaleidoscope effect for the first 4 frames. We're going to do the same thing for the second layer right here. This layer right here is the same as this first yellow layer right here. I just duplicated it, and we're going to be creating that kaleidoscope effect on this same layer. Cut this layer so that it only lasts 2 frames long. Add the same effect, CC Kaleido. Increase the size. Also change the rotation so that we get a better effect. For the mirroring, I'll just leave this at flower as well. Click floating center. Also change the center because I don't really like the way mine looks. Alright, so I just made mine like that. And of course, yours is going to look different depending on your clip. Now let's see what we have for the effect so far. So we have these 2 really fast cuts of the kaleidoscope effect. Next thing we're going to do is use these 2 layers right here, drag it all the way back so that it overlaps with this first section. I'll just bring it forward or bring it backwards so that starts off at the 16 frame mark. And this one is also going to be a rotoscope layer, so make sure to rotoscope your subject. And for this one, it's going to be the one where we create a distort stretch effect. Let's first start off by duplicating this rotoscope layer. And for this one, we are going to be creating an offset as well as a distort stretch effect. So what I'll do is offset this duplicated layer by 9 frames, go forward 9 frames, cut this layer so that it starts right there. Have this layer also cut in 3 frames forward from the beginning of this rotoscope layer right here, because like I mentioned, we want to create that offset effect, and then just drag this layer back so that it cuts at that different frame. Then we're going to be creating that distort stretch effect. So in order to create that, we're going to be adding a CC scale wipe. Once you add that effect, I'll change the direction because I want this effect to happen from the left to the right. So I'll just change this to 270 degrees, increase the stretch, change the X value at the center so that we get that nice stretch effect. I want this stretch effect to eventually not be on our rotoscope layer. So in order to do that, I'll go forward 2 frames, click Ctrl Shift D in order to cut that layer, then go forward another 2 frames, cut that layer again. For this one right here, I'm going to decrease the stretch. We want to create that effect where it slowly goes back to its regular layer. So I'll just decrease that to 9.20, go forward another 2 frames, cut that layer again, change the settings for this one as well. I'll decrease that so that's less than 9, decrease it just like that. Then from this layer right here, only go forward 1 frame, cut that layer. For this final 1 frame layer right here, delete the CC scale wipe effect. I want this effect to only last 10 frames. So what I'll do is just delete this layer right here, and then grab that background layer of this rotoscope layer, cut it forward 10 frames because in the beginning, I don't even want to see the background. I just want this rotoscope layer to overlap with this first clip right here. And for this layer right here, which is the first rotoscope layer, I'll go ahead and just cut it so that we don't see it anymore after this rotoscope layer right here. Now that we did all that, let's see what we have for the final effect or final effects. So we have that kaleidoscope effect at the beginning, and then we have offset CC scale wipe effect. So there's a lot that we did for this first one. That was like 3 different effects in one, but that's how you create this first part. Moving on to the next effects, this one is also going to be a rotoscope stretch effect. So I already rotoscoped my second layer right here. Make sure to do that and then have your background layer right underneath. What I'll do is grab these two layers and overlap it with the first clip. Just have this one start at the 16 frame mark, and we don't want to see that background layer for the first 10 frames. Cut this background layer forward 10 frames. That way we only see our rotoscope subject. Now we're going to be using this rotoscope layer in order to create that stretch effect. Add the CC scale wipe, change the direction to 270 degrees, because we want that stretch effect coming in from the left. Increase that to 52. And I'm also going to change the X value just by a little. That way it doesn't cover the entire subject. All right, so that looks pretty good. Then similar to how they did in the actual music video, we're going to have our rotoscope subject coming in from the left. Change the position for this. And I'm also going to increase the scale because it kind of starts off towards the top left. Drag this towards the left and then bring it up a little. Because we brought it up, it kind of cuts off at the bottom right here, which is why I want to increase the scale. Then I'll go forward 3 frames, cut this layer, click Ctrl Shift D. For this one, we're going to be changing the position. Move this slightly towards the right because we want to eventually go to the original position of this rotoscope layer. Go forward 2 frames, cut this layer, and for this layer right here, duplicate it. For the top one, we're going to be changing the settings of the CC scale wipe as well as the position and the scale. For the scale wipe, decrease the stretch so that's a lot less intense. Then decrease the scale. I'll just decrease that to 118% and move this a little more towards the right and brought it down just by a little. Then let's go forward another 2 frames, cut that layer again. For this layer, we're going to change the scale as well as the position again. Also change the settings of the CC scale wipe. Decrease the stretch so that's less than the layers from before, because just like how we did for the first effect, we want this scale wipe to eventually not be on our rotoscope layer. Then I'll also decrease the scale to 118% and drag this more towards the right. Once you do that, duplicate this layer and only change the position as well as the scale. For the scale, I'll change that back to 100% and then move the position a little more towards the right. We want this to eventually cut to the original position. And behind these 2 rotoscope layers, we're going to be creating that kaleidoscope effect. Grab this layer underneath and duplicate it. For the bottom one, we're going to be adding that CC kaleido effect. Increase the size and I'll also just solo this layer. That way we can see it by itself. For the mirroring, I'll change that to Starlish. I want this kaleidoscope effect to look a little different. So change the X value of the center. I really like the way this looks right here. And we're going to change the position because I want this kaleidoscope effect to happen right behind our subject here on the right. Keyframe the rotation at 0 degrees in the beginning, and we're going to actually have this effect last until it cuts into the clip. So what I'll do is just extend that layer. For the rotation, increase that to 45 degrees, bring that keyframe towards the end and easy ease the keyframes. Go forward another 2 frames, cut this layer again, and for this layer right here, change the stretch for the CC scale wipe back to 3, decrease the scale so that it's a lot smaller. For the position of this layer, just look at the layer from before, this one on the left, make sure that it's more towards the right compared to this one. So I'll go ahead and just move this more towards the right. And of course, we're going to duplicate this layer. Make sure that the scale for this one is at 100%. Also move the position. Make sure that it's close to the original position of the layer. Once you do that, I'll delete the rest of this layer right here and also extend this layer by 1 frame so that it cuts into the original clip. Now let's see what we have for the final effect. So this one can be kind of confusing because of all the different layers that we're using, but just think of it in a way where you use 2 different layers, 2 rotoscope layers. One is bigger and then one is smaller. It starts off at the left and then it eventually reaches the original position of the rotoscope layer. Then it just cuts into the actual clip. So you're changing the position as well as the scale and the CC scale wipe settings. But yeah, that is the final effect for the second part. Moving on to the third and final transition. This one is also going to be a rotoscope transition. So I already rotoscoped my second clip right here. First thing we're going to do is grab these 2 layers and overlap it with this first clip. Do the same thing, bring this back, and I only want this transition to last for 10 frames. So I'll go forward 10 frames from the beginning of that rotoscope layer. Cut that background layer because we don't want to see that background layer in the beginning. We're also going to cut this so that's only 10 frames. Add an effect called gradient wipe. For this effect, increase the transition completion. So I don't want to increase that all the way to 100% because I want it to show a little at the beginning. I'll increase the transition completion to 75% and then keyframe that in the beginning, go towards the end or 1 frame before the end, decrease the value, but don't decrease it to 0% because I don't want it to completely show at the end. Decrease that to 10%, bring that towards the end and easy ease both of the keyframes. We have this really nice gradient wipe effect, but I want it to look a little different, similar to how they did in the actual music video. So in order to do that, we're going to grab our background layer right here, duplicate that layer, and we're going to be adding a displacement map. Only focus on the max horizontal displacement, increase that to 268. And we're going to be using this layer as a map layer on this gradient wipe effect. So turn off that background layer, go over to this layer, change the gradient layer to the background too, and change this to effects and masks. So once I do that, you guys can see that we have that displacement map effect on this gradient wipe effect. So now that we created that transition, let's create the stutter effect. Go to the beginning of this background layer right here and go forward 10 frames. Then click Ctrl Shift D in order to cut that layer. First create a harsh cut, then create the stutter effect. Cut this layer forward 5 frames, bring it back. So we have that harsh cut between these two layers right here. Then we're going to create that stutter effect. So I'll just increase this layer because it's a little too short. And we're going to create 2 stutter effects. So I'll go forward 5 frames, cut that layer, duplicate the layers. So when it comes to stutter effects, I usually keep it anywhere from 2 to 4 frames. For this layer right here, I'll go forward 3 frames, cut that layer, make sure to delete the extra part of the layer, bring this layer forward, do the same thing for this layer right here, duplicate it, cut it so that's only 3 frames, bring that layer towards the end. Now let's see what we have for the final transition as well as the effects. So we have that really nice gradient wipe transition, the harsh cut, as well as the stutter effects at the end. But those are the 3 effects and transitions from this PZ Extra Extra music video. There was a lot that we covered today, so I would really appreciate it if you guys can drop a like on this video. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That's all I have for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.